Hi everyone, this is Jay with dailytexture.com, and today I've decided to work on a pet portrait, which I haven't done too much of lately. I've been more focused on the wildlife, but I wanted to up my game a little bit on some pet portraits, and instead of just putting a pet with a plain background such as this from the Breathless collection, I'm going to add a little bit more interest in there via some masking. This cat here is our cat Dixie that was shared with a neighbor. She was an indoor-outdoor cat. Unfortunately, she passed away several years ago, and they mentioned her name to me yesterday, and it made me think of these pictures I had taken of her shortly before she passed away, and I thought I would do a nice portrait of her. And this was a horizontal image, but I decided I wanted to do a vertical portrait, so I cropped this into a vertical. And then this texture here is from the Breathless collection, which is one of my favorites for portraits because it has some nice texture and brush strokes to it, and kind of just a gentle, soothing background to start with. And it kind of matches her color a little bit. So what my plan is not to put her in here cut off like this. I'm going to mask around here to give her face and neck area, have that be the focus of the portrait. So let me do that real quick. And I'm just going to take out all of this green background. I haven't done any editing to the photo. I'm just going to kind of get her in focus where I want her, and then I'm going to resize her layer a little bit bigger like this, and maybe move it around a little bit. I'm going to make this masking brush a little smaller. And get as close to her fur as I can with the masking brush. And this is at full opacity, which is what I always do to start with, just to get the subject mapped out. And I will reduce the opacity of this brush here in a minute, like I always do, which I show in all my videos with animals and birds. And I'll go right over her edges, because right now she looks kind of pasted on, which I don't like in any of my portraits. Okay, might want to enlarge that just a little more. Now I'm going to reduce the opacity of the masking brush and make it a little bigger. And I'm just going to go around her edges. That's a little too big. And tap in these areas where the background is still showing through. And this will take away her and bring the texture right in over her fur. And it will help her become part of the background instead of looking pasted on. Just very gently. You can still see the fur is there, but it's just more of an impression of it rather than a exact masking of it. And then go a little bigger here. Tap, tap. See how it's just kind of gently bringing that texture over her? And then if I want to bring some back, I go back the other way with my mask and bring some of that back. And it's a lot of back and forth here which is part of the artistic process for me, and it's very meditative. You may scoot her over just a little bit, and when you move around you can see where you've missed some on your mask, which I've missed some over here. So we're going to get full opacity and get rid of all of that, and you can see in your little mask box there, with whatever software you're using, you can see that, you know, if you have any little stray white spots, you can get rid of them. Okay, now I could make some adjustments to her. I could boost her saturation just a little bit. I could also get on the background layer and boost the saturation of that if I wanted to, just a little bit. I could make adjustments to her sharpness and clarity. I could adjust exposure just a little bit. It may be a little bright. If I wanted to bring back more of the fur on this side, I could do that at a low opacity with just a few little taps. See how just some of it's appearing? Same with over here. It just gets a little more. Now I brought some of the grass back there, so I'm going to undo that mark and come in a little closer. Okay, now to make her a little more interesting, I'm going to pull open this texture from the new Old World Blooms collection, which is, let me shut this off so you can see these are still life florals. And I often put a subject in here with the florals, but you don't have to use them that way. You can actually use just a part of the image to enhance another image. So I like the daisies. I think that I want to mirror image this. So this side of the daisies is in the picture, and I'm going to resize it like that and scoot it over like this, because I don't need the flower pot, the vase. I just want to bring in some of the daisies behind her, just a hint of them. So I'm going to invert the mask, put a mask over the whole thing, and it's gone. Now I'm going to put her back. Now staying on the floral layer, I'm going to, since I inverted it, I'm going to go back the other way, which would be like painting with black and white. I'm going to lower the opacity with a real big brush, and I'm just going to tap behind her and see about bringing some of these daisies in. Now those are a little big. You don't need the flower pot in there, but it can stay in there if it's needed. I'm going to resize it down and maybe scoot it like this. Turn it off and on. I've got some odd gray line here at the bottom, so I'm going to mask that back away. That's just the edge of the photo. But look how pretty that looks with that in there behind her. And I can adjust the opacity of the layer and even fade it a little bit more, like that. And let me play with size a little bit more and scoot it a little more. That's pretty. Now on the floral layer, the floral colors are much more saturated than the rest of this. So I'm going to pull down the saturation a little bit to make it match a little better. And I'm going to get on her layer and reposition her a little bit. Maybe down closer to the bottom. There we go. Oh, I really like that. Then I'm going to take the breathless texture and duplicate it and put it on top and change the layer mode and see what kind of looks I get, and it'll bring some texture over into her as well. So see, it brightens everything up, puts some texture on her, and then I'll adjust the opacity to where I want it. I may even pull the saturation of that overlay layer up a little bit more than I had it. I can adjust the exposure of that texture layer. So I like to play with all the layers to make everything look cohesive. So I will make adjustments even on the texture layers, like I showed here with reducing saturation and increasing it on this one, to try to get everything to tie in together nicely. And then I could even, just to make her a little more front and center, bring her size up a little more. And I really like the way that's looking at this point. I think that's a beautiful portrait of Dixie, and I'm very happy with this. But I want to just show you on these old world blooms how you can use just parts of them to enhance. And you can use any of the backgrounds. Let's shut this off and let's bring something else in. Let's bring in a full background and just see. Let me see. How about I'm looking through here to see what I want. That's the vintage floral mix would be pretty. Oh gosh. I've gotten where I can't decide. We could take her to the Savannah. See, that's the neat thing about these. You don't have to use the full background of any of my backgrounds. You can input just a little bit of a hint of it into anything you wish. This one's pretty. Okay, let me turn her off so I can see. That's pretty, but let's enlarge it and flip it, putting the tree on that side, and let's move it up. Let's scale it up a little bit more. This is going to be fun. Dixie going to the Savannah. That's interesting. Now, obviously, I would mask off some of this, so let's just invert that mask, and we'll bring some of it back at a low opacity in the background. And I like to have her layer on when I do this and just tap and see where I want to add something. Now, it's kind of unrealistic that Dixie would be in the Savannah, but Dixie was quite the explorer, so there's no telling with her. I'm softening that back up. You can adjust opacity. But see, now I've got some nice trees from a background in there behind her. So I could do that. I could do the flowers, which the flowers I think are better for her in this case, but I just wanted to show you how you could take a piece of a full background and put it in there to up your game a little bit on pet portraits instead of just the pet with the plain background like this. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but if you wanted to make some difference, a little bit of difference artistically, this is a great way to do it. So anyway, I'm happy with this version. This one is fun, and it kind of does show that she was quite the explorer. So you know, it could work. It just depends on the pet's personality. But Dixie was fascinated with flowers, and seems like all my cats have always been fascinated with flowers. They always want to check them out. And so I think this one is more appropriate for her, just to speak to the personality of the pet. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed watching this quick little video to show how I can pull together a pet portrait that's a little different than just the normal pet with the plain background. And the backgrounds I offer, even the full backgrounds, can be used in such a wide variety of ways. You don't have to use the whole thing. You can use them like this and fade them in. But they're great for creating a different overall look and using them in parts and pieces instead of just inputting your subject into a background. So I thought I would show that off today. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this, and maybe we'll play with your portraits a little bit more with some of the backgrounds and see what you can come up with. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.